Welcome back to Part 2 for learning a system on solving one-step equations. This time we'll focus on multiplying and dividing. First, you need to understand how to make a 1. You make a 1 by dividing a number by itself. For example, 4 divided by 4 equals 1. Negative 17 divided by negative 17 equals 1. Even a variable divided by itself equals 1. The other way to make a 1 looks like this. It's called multiplying by the reciprocal. I simplify diagonally by using a common factor, which in this case is 8. 8 divided by 8 equals 1. 8 divided by 8 equals 1. I multiply straight across, and 1 divided by 1 equals 1. This should look and sound familiar. Next, you also need to remember the integer rules for multiplying and dividing, which are the same for each. An odd number of negative signs in a problem equals a negative answer. An even number of negative signs in a problem equals a positive answer. Or have your study sheet handy. Also, just a heads up, in an equation, division is always in the form of a fraction. Finally, the same essential principles apply. Get the variable by itself, and what you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side to keep it balanced. Alright, let's review the structure and action items. Watch and listen carefully to these steps. When you see a variable being multiplied to a number, draw a fence. Next, you're going to do action item number 1. On the variable side, make a 1 by dividing, which is the inverse operation. Next, draw a simplify line and do action item number 2 by simplifying using the division integer rules. And what if you see a variable being divided by a number? That's right, just follow the same steps. Draw your fence, but this time make a 1 on the variable side by multiplying by the reciprocal. Draw a simplify line, then calculate using the multiplication integer rules. Now let's work the problems. I see a variable being multiplied to a number. I draw a fence. Next, I do the first action item. On the variable side, I make a 1 by using the inverse operation. In this case, I see multiplying by negative 4, so I divide by negative 4 to each side. Now I have a negative 4 divided by a negative 4, which equals 1, so I want you to draw a 1 over both integers. Next, draw a simplify line, and bring down the y, which is left over, and now by itself. Last, I do the second action item. I see I have an odd number of negatives, so 24 divided by negative 4 is negative 6, so y equals negative 6. Let's check our answer. I write the original equation and replace the variable with the solution I found. I use order of operations to see if each side equals each other. Yes, the equation is balanced. Let's try a problem with division. I see a variable being divided by 8. I draw a fence. Next, I do the first action item. On the variable side, I make a 1 by using the inverse operation. In this case, I see a variable divided by 8, so I multiply by the reciprocal to each side. After a while, you don't need to put the 1 underneath the 8. Then I make a sideways 1. Next, I draw a simplify line, and I bring down the d, which is left over and now by itself. Last, I do the second action item. I see I have an odd number of negatives, so 8 times a negative 2 equals a negative 16. So d equals negative 16. Now, let's check our answer. I write the original equation and replace the variable with the solution I found. I use order of operations to see if each side equals each other. Fantastic, the equation is balanced. Remember this problem? Can you see where a 1 was made here? I hope you're getting the hang of this. Now, the most common mistakes I see students make are mixing up when to make a 0 and when to make a 1. Let me show you what I mean. By now you're used to thinking of the inverse operation, so when you see a negative 4, you think, oh, I have to do the opposite and add 4 to each side. So he made a 0 instead of a 1. But because the variable was being multiplied to a number, he should have made a 1 by dividing -4 to each side. You must be careful and ask yourself, what is happening to the variable? I make a 0 when I see a variable being added or subtracted to a number. I make a 1 when I see a variable being multiplied or divided by a number. Another way students confuse the rules is this. She got the inverse operation right by dividing, but saw the negative and thought she had to divide by the opposite. Or she may have just forgot to include the negative. Either way, a -4 divided by a 4 equals a -1, and you always want a positive one. So again, pay attention to those negative signs. And last, don't divide by the variable. You want to keep it, remember? You want the variable by itself. As we wrap it up, keep a copy of both equation study sheets to use as a reference guide. These type of problems may require a bit more practice. Well, congratulations! You have completed learning about solving one-step equations. Now you're ready for the two-step. See you next time.